Hello again and welcome to Angie B Cards and Crafts. Today, you may have guessed, I'm actually going to be talking about using alcohol inks. So I've laid out in front of me a few of the accoutrements required to have fun with alcohol inks. So the two main things that you need are the paper that you're going to be using. Now I've chosen Yupo paper. This is an incredible product. It's not paper, it's called Yupo paper. It's not actually paper at all, it's plastic. But it's used in sheets similar to paper, and you can put ink onto it, and you can put alcohol ink onto it, and you can draw on it, etc, etc. So it's classed as paper, but it is actually made of plastic, and it's not possible to tear it. So you can pull at it, but you can't actually rip it like you can with ordinary paper. So Yupo paper, the pack that I've currently got is 110 GSM and it is A4. So I've quite simply cut it down into smaller pieces so that they're easier to work with. I've not done any larger pieces with alcohol inks to date. I quite like working with the A6 size. So there's the paper. So the next thing that's a must-have is obviously the alcohol inks. Now all my alcohol inks come from Ranger. They're in the Tim Holtz range. The original packaging was Tim Holtz Adirondack, but now it's just Ranger alcohol inks. They're still the Tim Holtz, they've still got his signature on the side. They're just more up-to-date kind of packaging. So this is currently my entire stash of alcohol inks. So I've got greens, purples, pinks. I've got a lovely, lovely aqua there, orange, yellow. I've got a few different colours, but they mix to make other colours, and to be honest I've not found that I'm lacking in any. Having said that, I have just ordered some new ones, so I will be getting rather a large increase in my alcohol ink stash. But these are the ones that I've got to use at the minute, and these are the ones that I've used on the samples that I'm going to show you. So in addition to the alcohol inks and the paper, you also need, well, you don't need, but it is beneficial to have some form of tool, to apply the ink with. So again, you can use, well, you can just squirt it onto the paper, which I'll show you how to do, but if you want to spread it and mix it, you can use one of these tools. So anyone who does inking onto paper will recognise this as an applicator, but the difference is you actually don't have the foam pad on it, you have a felt pad. Now I'm awaiting delivery of my latest stash, so I'm down to my final two clean ones, but this is what they look like. They're just a very fine felt, and they just go onto the hook Velcro. You place them on, give them a bit of a squish, and they're on. That's it. It's as simple as that. If you want to change them, you take it off and put the next one on. So I'm going to be using some of my dirty ones, because if you've got a colour on them, there's no harm in reusing it. So that's why I've kept the dirty ones. The ink that's on them will reactivate as soon as you add any other ink to it. So you may get different colours, or if you're using the same colour palette, then obviously that's going to maintain the same colour. It's also useful to have some form of alcohol, and I don't mean to drink. What we're looking at is isopropanol. Now this one is 99.9%, and it's one that I bought on Amazon, and I've had it quite a long while. I've used about half of the bottle so far, but I don't use it out of this. I've actually got a set of these little bottles, and I literally just decant it. These are quite awkward to open. It won't open. Let me try with my raggy, see if that'll help. There we go. So this just gives me the nib at the top, which means I can direct where the alcohol is going rather than just pouring and praying. So other things that another thing that you can get as well is this. Now some of these are on the market designed for crafting. There's one that Ranger have brought out, again under the brand of Tim Holtz, and that's coming in anywhere between sort of £12 and £15. So I thought, well, I couldn't get one, to be honest. I've been struggling to get hold of them, so I decided to try this, which is a lens cleaning bulb. So it's under the camera section on Amazon, and it cost me, I think it was £6, and it's brilliant. It does exactly what I need it to. So it sucks air in at one end and then blows it out the other end. You can see I've touched onto my alcohol inks with it, so it's changed colour at the end, but it's literally, it's just blowing. So you can see that moving. It's just blowing air out. As simple as that. That's all there is to that. It's nothing particularly exciting, but it is good how you can use it. Now, in addition to standard alcohol inks, you can also get a few speciality inks. So there's the alloys, the mixatives, and the pearl that I'm aware of. There may well be others, but they're the 3 additional ones that I'm aware of. And again, they're in the Tim Holtz Ranger range. I only have one of them at the moment. I have got some of the alloys on order, having seen them being used recently and thought they were wonderful, but I currently only have a pearl, and it's in pink. It's called Intrigue, which I think is quite a nice name. Now, similar to some of the sprays that you can get, so like the Distress Oxide spray or sprays that have got shimmer because of mica in them, this has got a different coloured bit at the bottom. So here's the ink, which is the quite dark pink, and then there's a paler pink at the bottom. And that's your pearly bit, that's your little bit of mica. And because it's got mica in, it's got a ball in it, so that when you shake it, it mixes the mica into the ink and it gives you a different look. So you can see that paler bit has now disappeared. It's mixed into the mica and you get a different look with it. So I will show you how that looks as well. So what I'm going to do first is just show you a couple of really simple things that I've done and then show you how I did them. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show you. Personally, I'm not actually that keen on this one, but I thought I'd show it because it was something a bit different. But you can change it. And what I'm going to show you with this now is how you can change it. Once I've shown you the others, I'll show you how you can alter this if you don't like it. But this was a very simple, this was actually using this one, which is why it's got the pink and green. And it was literally just doing a checkerboard, changing it round, and then I decided to add some alcohol into the middle of the pinks and it pushes it out. What you find with alcohol inks is whatever colour you put on top of an existing colour, it pushes the existing colour to the edge, to the limits. It automatically spreads. And that's what makes it interesting, because you don't actually know what you're going to get. So we're going to come back to that one in a moment, but that's one. This is another one, which was, again, it was quite a simple one. It was, again, using the blending tool, putting down the colour, but then as you swipe across it, you can see this bit's a bit paler, so it's actually taken some of the top layer of ink off and made the paler ink come forwards. So you can make some interesting patterns and some interesting kind of landscapey looks. And here's another one that I do. Now, I love this one. I'm planning on putting some sort of image on top of this one, but I've not decided what as yet. It can go either way up, go sideways on. Personally, I like it that way. And again, that's been put on. I simply put the colours on in stripes and then started mixing it together with the blending tool. So they're really simple ways of using the blending tool. So I'm going to start off with that and see how we get on. So first of all, I'm just going to show you what it's like when you put the alcohol ink down onto the Yupo paper. I've not added anything to this. This is just dry Yupo paper. And then I'm going to put a few dots of alcohol ink onto it. So we'll go with the aqua. There we go. And I think we'll go with the raspberry. Now, when this comes out, it usually looks really, really bright. But I love it with the aqua because it turns purple at the edges. So you can see it's beginning to move around a little bit. So you can see it's starting to push to the edges. The aqua's pushing out. The raspberry's pushing out to the aqua. It's bleeding over the edges on this one. This one it's completely submerged. So you don't actually know what you're going to get, but it automatically wants to spread. So then, if you take your alcohol, now this is the same sort of stuff that the blending solution is made of. Obviously there's more specialism in the blending solution. Personally, I haven't used this blending solution that Ranger do, and I don't know if there would be a benefit to using it, but I find I can do what I want to do just by using the isopropanol. So I'm sticking with this for now. But what you can do with this, if I just put a couple of drops, you can see it's then pushing out the centre colours, and it's much, much paler in the middle because it's kind of clearing the path. This is clear and it's clearing the path. So you can have fun doing this, okay? So you don't lose your ink. Your alcohol ink still stays on your paper. It doesn't disappear. What I'm going to do is pop one of my last remaining pads on, and then I'm just going to show you how you can then move it. Now I love this. I absolutely love the way this looks. So all I'm doing now is picking up what's there, and I'm just starting to pad over it, just moving it around the paper. It's a really simple way to make some backgrounds that you can then stamp onto or use on a card as a background. And the great thing about alcohol ink is if you don't like it, you can just go over it. Okay, so you can see here there's lots of little cells. The bits that are bigger have not had as much of this on top. If I've put more of this on top, you can start to see the cells start off small and grow, but as it dries, and as it dries on the pad, you tend to get a clearer look of the cells and they don't grow as much. So you can then start getting different patterns on your paper, which I just think looks really cool. Almost looks a bit like a microscope slide. So looking at hair follicles or something under a microscope. I just think it's brilliant. Okay, so you can see here I'm starting to get some lines, and that's similar to what I've got here, and that's how I did it. As it was drying, I just started to do some more stamping. So what am I going to do now? I think I'm going to introduce another colour, and I'm going to go this time with purple twilight. Pink and purple go well together. You can still see a hint of the turquoise underneath. Let's add some purple, just a couple of drops like that. Okay, now with these, what I would say, I tend to find the tops get quite messy, and that doesn't bother me. Sometimes they get a bit stiff because it can get sticky while it's shut, but you can see there's a tiny little blob of ink just at the very, very top. They're designed so that it's not going to dry out. That tiny little blob of ink actually stops it from drying out. So if you leave your lid off while you're working with them, they shouldn't evaporate within the bottle. Okay, now I may have left this, oh no, I've not left it too long. So you can start again to mix this in. If you do feel you want a little bit more, just get your colour, I don't know why I put that lid back on to be honest, and add a little bit more. And the best thing that I can say about this is it's like playtime, because you can literally add whatever colours you want wherever you want them. So again, this pink comes out really, really bright. And when I first saw it on the paper, I was like, I don't like that. It's not a colour that I would use. But it really knocks itself back and is a much duller colour once it's dried that I much prefer. So again, I'm just spreading this. Can you see this edge here? That is the ink being pushed away by the other inks, and it forms these little ridges, and they are like little ridges. When you look at them, there's very, very slightly raised on the paper. Right, what should we add now? I think we'll go back to the aqua and add a little bit of that. Oh, don't worry if you drop spots and you think, oh, I didn't want that there. Just see what happens. Now you'll notice most of them, it goes out in a round way, and you don't necessarily always want that, but I will show you how you can alter that. So that was just incredibly random dropping of the alcohol solution. If there's bits you like, you can leave them alone. If there's bits you don't like, you can go over them. And you can just make your background however you want. Now, one thing that I have found is that if you go in and think the first time you put the inks down, you're going to get what you want, you may well get lucky and get that. But what I've found is if I've decided an area needs to be a certain colour, I need to work in small parts on that area. So if I wanted a little bit of turquoise here, and I knew that I definitely wanted that, I can put that in and I can work it. But I can then add some more in. And you can just keep adding little bits. And the longer you leave it, the further it travels. And the more you're going to see it. So you just add a little bit at a time, depending what effect you want. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of the aqua over here, just because I think it's missing there. I'm going to put 3 drops on there. So you can see I'm only using drops at a time as well. You don't use an awful lot of it. Now I want this to kind of look like these two, so I'm letting it spread out a little bit. And then as it's starting to dry, I'm going to start going over it. So it's going to maintain an undertone of that turquoise. And I've got a loose thread somewhere on there. But it's keeping that undertone there. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one for now. And I shall come back to that when I use this in a little while. So the other thing that I'm going to do is go over this one because I don't like it. I'm not sure which bit of it I don't like. I quite like the pink and the green together, but I don't like the overall look of it. So I'm going to add in, I'll put some purple in. I'm just going to put a couple of splodges, see where they end up. And then start spreading it. So you'll see it's reactivating. So I did this several days ago and then it's just been reactivated. So you then start to get more mixing of the colours. One thing to bear in mind is if you really, really like a particular bit, don't put anything else near it. Because as soon as you put any other alcohol on it, it impacts how it looks. So you can see this is now getting very different colours on it, plus I've got the colours left that I was using on the previous piece because I just carried on because I've got pinks on this. I decided to carry on, but it's coming through with a little bit of brown. Not sure I like it, but we'll see how we get on. With a little bit more purple. I'm really just wanting to knock back that green, not liking that green too much at all. All the little circles underneath. So I'm just trying to get rid of some of the bits I don't like. And what you've got to bear in mind with this as well is it's about trial and error. It's about seeing which bits you like. Now I really like the way we're seeing this opening up and we're getting the overlaps of the different bits, but I'm not as keen on it over here. So I'll start spreading that out a bit. Turn it round, spread this out just a little bit, just soften the edges down. Oh, I'm starting to like this. It's still a bit too much of that bright green on for my liking. Let's see if we can get rid of some more of that. I think we will throw in some yellow. Now this yellow is called Sunshine Yellow. I'm going to aim to put it on some of the green bits. Now remember, it's going to spread. It wants to spread, and it's going to spread where it likes to be. But you can then control where it goes. Oh, I'm liking that more now. Now it's got a little bit more of an orange tinge coming in. Get rid of that green. I think it's the green that I didn't like because I'm liking that now. So let's put a little bit of the yellow. So you can see the yellow has mixed with the pink and you've now got oranges and reds going through. but you've still got these paler colours. You've still got some cells of the pink. Let's get rid of a bit more of this green. Have another drop there. I do love just watching it. Sometimes it's nice to just put the ink down and see how it travels. I think it's so, so pretty. Definitely a long piece somewhere on here. There it is, got it that time. So one thing to bear in mind with this as well is that you can do it and look at it and go, oh my word, that's a mess, which is what I'd done with that pink and green. I really didn't like it. But now I've added in the other colours, I actually rather like that. I think it's interesting. Something that you can choose to do if you want to, if you're good at sort of finding, almost like finding images in clouds, you can find images in your alcohol ink paper, and you can start to draw around them and have different flowers or animals or whatever it is you see. So I'm going to start with that one, and then I'm going to get another blank piece. Now this time I'm going to put down the ink slightly differently. I'm going to swap this. It's my very last felt. Now I have looked at what other people think about this felt, and a few people have said that they've actually just bought some thin felt and cut it down. I haven't tried that myself, but if you have some thin felt and you want to cut it down, it's worth a try. If you do try that, please let me know what you think. I would be interested to know. So this time we're going to work slightly differently. So I'm going to do a little bit of a line of colour. So we'll use this. Can you tell what my favourite colours are? I'll use this. And I think we'll go orange. Okay, so you can see it's starting to mix. So we're just going to repeat that. So start with the turquoise again. Doesn't matter that a little bit just sploshed in there. Not worried about that at all. A little bit of the purple. So even doing this, you're really not using an awful lot because you can see the ink just wants to spread. So as soon as you lay it down onto the Yupo paper, it spreads and starts to mix with the other inks around it. But what we're going to do in a moment is give it a little bit of a helping hand. And the last one is a little bit of purple. Okay, so for this one, quite simply just going to use, now I've not used these colours together, don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm hoping it's going to look alright, but I'm just starting to mix the colours together. So I'm going to use opposite sides of the pad to start with, just to start the mixing of the two colours at each bit. Mix that a little bit more, and then I'm going to turn it round to start introducing the orange. And it just softens up those edges a little bit, and then we're going to bring the orange down into the blue. So it appears that on this occasion orange is going to be my dominant colour. So what I'm now going to do is just go in. You can see it stays damp for quite a while, so you've got time to play with it. I managed to put my finger there, apologies for that. So you think, oh, that's done, right, okay. So now, instead of actually putting the alcohol onto the paper, I'm going to put it on to here. So I'm just squirting a little bit of this. So when I start to do this, you're going to see the ink moving again because it's coming into contact with the isopropyl. So I'm just going to do little bits. You can see now we're starting to get a pattern running through here. And as I said earlier, each time you put it on, it starts to spread. And that's all the alcohol wants to do on the paper. It just wants to spread out. That's its favourite thing to do. And as it then dries, oh, I've got a friendly fly. As it then dries, you'll start to see that it becomes less manoeuvrable. And what starts to happen is these cells that you can see start to get smaller and smaller. So this time I'm just going to put a little bit just on that edge. I want to use just the edge this time, and I'm going to start. So you can see I'm doing smaller patterns, but the cells that are being produced are smaller as well. So as it gets drier, it produces smaller and smaller cells. I like the look of this. And no matter how often I see it, I absolutely love seeing the cells grow and spread and start to take over the paper. Okay, I'm just going to give that a second, and I'm going to go back in and just see what happens. So you can see they're getting smaller. So if you look on this side where the alcohol ink had just got, had just gone on, exactly the same kind of movement, and they're deeper than they are on this side. And then we come in again and they get smaller. And you can just add them as you want them. I quite like the linear look of this. And it just mixes the colours. So the colours aren't as bright as they were to start with, but because I'm using the edge, rather than going over the whole thing with the whole pad, I'm not getting a pad that looks like this, that it looks like mud almost. I'm actually getting the pad to do the work in smaller areas. Okay, so this time, what you find sometimes, because the ink goes over the edge, your paper doesn't want to come off. I have a friendly scalpel if that does happen, so that I can actually get it to come off. So this time I'm going to go across the ways. I'm leaving slightly larger gaps between each of them. Almost looks like an image of chromatograph, that's it, when you find out the different things in an item. I quite like the look of that, so I think that's quite a nice background. If you want to, you can start then adding in another colour to brighten it up. So we can choose to add in, I don't know how this is going to go, might go horribly wrong, could completely ruin it, but hey, it's just a bit of Yupo. And I think one of the things that I would say, and I think I said it earlier, is just play. Get this and give it a go. There's no rules with it really. You just put the ink where you want the ink to go and be aware it's going to move. Oh, I do quite like that one. So that's another way of doing it. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you isn't going to be using this. We're finished with this for now. I'm going to now use my little puffball thing. So the sort of thing that you get with this is this kind of thing. So this was the very first image that I did with the puffball, and I just absolutely love it still. I think it's brilliant. The other ones that I've done, I'll do the larger ones first. This is my flower collection. So we have this one, which I love. You can see it's my favourite colours, you may have noticed. So the purple, the pink and the turquoise together, I just think it's beautiful. But working in little parts of the paper rather than the whole image. So you do it a bit at a time. quite like this one. I think that looks quite vibrant, even though it's duller colours, if that makes any sense. I like that one as well. There's some of them that you make and you might think, I don't like it, but someone else might. Now this one just makes me smile because I can't now unsee that I think it looks like a bit of a nonchalant lion. So this is the lion's face, and the lion's kind of going, I don't know, with the hands out to the side. It is actually meant to be a flower, but I'm happy with that being classed as a nonchalant lion. That's fine by me. I absolutely love that image. It's kind of like fire, could be petals moving about in the wind, it could be whatever you want it to be, but I just think it's beautiful. I feel quite proud of that one. Now this one, the others have all had white on them out of that collection. This one I covered the whole page, but you can still see there are very definitely flowers there. So I quite like the fact that it's a different look, but I prefer personally having the white around. And then I did some smaller images as well. So I did that one. So this is again just getting the piece of Yupo and cutting it in half again before you start. This one. I've got that one. And I've also got this one, which is the difference with this one is I've actually gone in with a gel pen afterwards and started adding some white bits in. So I think that looks almost like purple seaweed under the sea. I quite like the look of it. Again, it's my favourite colours. So I am going to use, I think we'll go with red, yellow and orange for this one. Okay, so I've got my inks ready. So I'm going to start by laying down some red, and I'm literally just going to put some drops in the middle of the page. So I'll put about 4 or 5 drops there, and then you take this and you just start blowing and guiding where the ink's going to go. So you get a little bit more control of the direction of the ink. Note to self in future, make sure you've moved all your pads out of the way before you start blowing. But you can see that that's just one blob that's then dispersed. You can still start to see layers, but if you compare that to something like this, there's a lot more layers there, there's a lot more different individual parts to it than there is on this. And that's because you start adding the different colours over the top. So now I'm going to add some orange. This orange is called Sunset Orange. So we've got sunshine yellow, sunset orange, and cranberry is the red colour. So again, you just choose the direction you want your ink to go in. Apologies if my hand's going over the top. I'm just wanting to direct the nozzle a little bit. And then I'm going to put some yellow in the middle. So this is just about building it up. This is one thing that you can do with this. This isn't the only thing, but this is one option. Now you can always choose to just turn your paper rather than doing what I was doing and reaching over. That would be a sensible thing to do, I think. Then we're going to go back to the red. So we're just continuing to add different colours. So you'll see each layer you put on becomes the dominant colour where you put it. But you want to start moving it into the different areas. Well, that one dried a bit faster than I wanted it to, so I'm just going to add some more. So it's quite simple. You just keep adding. I think possibly because I've got all the lights on, it's drying off a bit quicker, but you can start to see there's a lot more intricacy to the different levels. You're starting to see a lot more individual parts of petals, but it's not a highly technical thing to do. I'm going to put a little bit more orange on. I want to move that around at the bottom a bit. So you can see there where I've started to I put the last drop of orange lower down. So my line is at a different point. My top line here, where the orange was spreading, is at a different point. So it's added more interest to the centre. Let's put some yellow in. Now potentially this is the last bit in the middle. And then we may well start adding out to the sides. Oop. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding some orange out here. So the ink automatically wants to spread out all the way around, so you can see it's starting to push back in here. So you just need to be aware of that and remember to push it in the direction you want it to go, because it is going down as a circle and wants to spread out as a circle. And you can see it's also picking up the colour from underneath, so we're getting the orange but with some of this red that's already laid down. Okay, turn it round, Angela, come on. There we go. Turn around. Now there are different GSMs of Yupo that you can get, and there is one, I can't remember what GSM it is, I think it's about 280 GSM, but I wouldn't swear to it. And it's designed to be double-sided. So if you were wanting to use that in a junk journal or something and you wanted to work on both sides of it, you could. Whereas on this one, if you were to try and work on the back side, you would probably find that quite a lot of what's already on has come through. If I just show you, you can see it. It's come through at the edges anyway, but you can see what's on the other side. So the thicker Yupo does have its place as well. So you can see I'm just putting smaller drops now, so I'm just doing like 1 or 2 drops and working in a specific area to then spread it out. I just find this really, really relaxing. I'm just blowing the ink around. Now, some people will say you can do this with a straw. I would suggest don't. And there's a very simple reason for that, is you're working with alcohol. So you're actually working with a solvent. And because of that, you're going to be inhaling it every time you breathe in to then blow out with your straw. You're going to be inhaling the solvent. So you don't want to do that because it could potentially make you a little bit unwell. So the best thing to do is to use one of these tools because it does the puffing for you, basically. Just put a little drop there, take it out that way. I'm going to keep some of that orange. But I'm constantly blowing away from that middle piece. Now I'm conscious I've got some dots there. I'm not worried about that because there's a really simple way to manage it. I love it when you get some of these little bits flying out like that. I just think it's brilliant. So you can start to see now that's looking like a flower. Well, I think it is anyway. You can see there's some bits here that almost look like they're black. I don't know if you'll be able to see them because of the shininess of them, but the blackness, all that is the amalgamation of the different lines of the ink. So where they join, particularly with darker colours, you tend to get that blackness, but I actually quite like that. I think it adds texture and it adds a little bit of shine. It can look quite matte when you finish, or almost a satin look at best, but then the raised bits where the inks have met with each other, so when it's pushing the other inks away and it builds that rim around it, have a shiny quality to them, which I think is quite nice to add texture. So I'm going to simply put some yellow over the top and choose how I want to blow that. So I've still kept my yellow in the middle, but I've gotten rid of that little rogue dot. So that's how you can make a flower. I think it's a really impressive look for something that's quite simple to do, and it's something that I would highly recommend you have a go at. What I'm going to do now is just have a play using this piece that I don't really like. So I was saying to you, if you don't like it, don't worry about it. I am going to go for some pinks, putting quite a lot down. So similar to how I did when I was doing the flower, put quite a lot down and then start blowing the base out. So it doesn't always have to be flowers. I just seem to have a real thing about flowers. It can just be patterns. There are other alcohol inks on the market. There's not only Ranger. I just personally, I've only used the Ranger ones. There's one range that I've seen called Pinata, which I haven't used, but they may well be very, very good. I don't know. So if anyone has used other alcohol inks, please let me know. I'd love to hear what your feedback is on other inks as well. So none of the things that I use have been given to me by anyone to try. These are all just things that I have that I enjoy playing with. I'm not advertising for any companies or anything like that, with the exception of when I'm doing the work for JMC Designs, obviously, in which case I am promoting the JMC Designs. Have you seen my JMC Designs video? Quite like that, because it's things that I wouldn't ordinarily work with, but I think I've managed to make it a bit more like my style. So all I've done there is very simply add some top colours, and I think that looks much, much better as a background. I think what you can do now is put on some sort of sentiment, whether you stamp it on or stick it on, and even if you just put a sentiment over the top or just in that space there, or add more of this blowy look into it to give it a deeper texture. I think there's ways to rescue those cards those sheets that you may not like, just by simply doing that. So I hope you found that useful. Please have a look at my YouTube channel. There are other videos available. Follow me on Facebook at Angie B Cards and Crafts. Follow me on Instagram, it's just Angie B. And please let me know if there's anything else that you'd like some videos on, and I will now try and clear up. Oh, one hint, a hint. When you want to clear up, really useful, if you have a raggy to hand, get some of your alcohol, spray it on your mat, like so. Give it a second to work its magic and spread out, and then it just lifts it all off. So it's a really easy way of cleaning up. The first time I ever used alcohol inks, I covered my mat with cling film, I covered my desk with cling film. I was like, oh, it's going to make such a mess. Nowadays I've discovered it's very easy to clean up just by doing that. I hope you've enjoyed this, and hopefully you'll give me a thumbs up and follow me on the different media, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to know about. Thank you, bye!